everyone. This is Mary Honan with a new show, a new concept entirely for me, which will go alongside Be My Guest and My Story. This is called The Biz, and it's for business owners, new and established, from around the globe, as well as artists or authors who want to promote their work. It's a platform for these business owners, and whether they're new or established, to talk about their work, the journey that they took to becoming entrepreneurs, and the trials and tribulations. And I'm very honored that the very first guest I have on it is Nasima Alam from the United Kingdom, who has a magnificent company called Sweet Drops of Heaven. Hi, Nasima.
Hi, Mary.
Salam alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
That's about all I know in Arabic, and it's because my friend's husband is Muslim, and it's the only thing I ever say to him, and he always answers me exactly as you do.
I think that's the nice thing, that you're actually making an effort. So that's lovely.
Oh, well, you know, I mean, it doesn't take much of an effort. Nasima, your company is called Sweet Drops of Heaven.
Yeah, that's correct.
Sugarcraft. I call it Sugarcraft.
Yeah.
Roses and flowers. And what brought you down this road, Nasima? Tell me about your journey to becoming a cake designer extraordinaire.
Oh, I like that. I think it was definitely not planned at all. About probably now 6 years ago, I was sort of at this crossroad, 40 years old, lots of things not going well in my personal life, career-wise as well. I mean, I'm a primary school teacher, so I'd been teaching up until then, you know, on and off, part-time, full-time, along having 2 children along the way as well. So it came to the point I just wanted to make some changes in my life, really, just for the better, so I could manage it more. So I started doing supply teaching. So I gave up the full-time role of a class teacher.
Yeah.
It was very stressful, very time-consuming, and it was very difficult to manage everything. And I found that by doing supply teaching, it just freed up some more time for me to do more baking. So I started doing a bit more baking. Would always look on the internet at ways of, you know, making things look pretty. Yeah. And I think it just started there, really. And I was never on social media prior to that. And one of my family members suggested, you know, go on Instagram and you can view all these amazing cakes and things. And so I started looking at things on Instagram and started posting just basic things that I was trying out, and some of the trial and errors that I was going through as I was teaching myself. And it all began there, really, you know, very unexpectedly.
It's a magnificent art form. I actually did some wedding cakes. I did a 3 wedding cakes, and I did all the handmade roses and butterflies flying away with the ribbons and everything. But I have to say I just look at yours in utter disbelief. They're just breathtakingly beautiful. What I love about them is the delicacy, is the tonal quality of the colors that you use. You look at colors and you say, you know, people would say, oh, that color won't go with this color, but nature has its own way of showing you that every color goes. But providing you use the right tone of and the right shade of colors, they can all go. You know, people would say before pink and red don't go, or blue and green don't go. But nature has its own way. When you look at birds and you look at flowers, of seeing that, yes, they do go, providing you tackle the color correctly. Do you know?
I think I feel like I'm still going through my journey with my sugar flowers. It's trying to balance between how much time you're spending on making it look beautiful and realistic to how much you're getting paid. Because
yes,
you can look at one rose and it can have up to 50, 60 petals, but realistically, no one's going to pay you for those 50, 60 petals that you put on each of those sugar flowers. So it's about trying to balance between, yes, it looks realistic, yes, it looks okay, but in order for it to be really, really perfect and to be correct, botanically correct,
anatomically,
trying to get that balance is, I find I'm sort of forever fighting with myself, because I want it to look realistic, but at the same time it's trying to think, what, this isn't financially economical for you to be spending X amount of times on a sugar flower that's and
it's a difficult balance when you're a creative person and when you have an eye for the aesthetic, and you're there saying, oh, I know it would look lovely now if there were 2 more layers of petals on it, but am I going to make, and then you're juggling the business head with the creative head, and usually the creative head wins with me, and I end up making nothing out of things, because I just go that extra step to make it look beautiful, when in actual fact, but I mean, I am correct in saying that each layer takes a day to actually dry before you put the next layer on. That's what I did anyway.
Depends on which sugar flower you're working on. For example, if you're working on like an open peony, which is attached onto individual wires, you have to allow that at least 2 or 3 days minimum for it to dry really hard before you can start assembling it. Whereas if you're doing something like a sugar rose, I think what I tend to do is I work from outside in. So I start working on the outer layers, which are usually obviously larger petals, so that by the time I've sort of worked on the centerpiece, and by the time I come to putting the outer layer on, it's fairly firm, and then I can stick it on fairly quickly. Okay. So the time management is quite important as well, so that you're not wasting a lot of time waiting for things to dry before you can attach the next layer.
I found with mine now, if you put on 4 layers, that was 4 days. You basically had to hang. You had the bud, and then you put the bud took a day, then the first layer a day, and then the second layer a day, and then the third layer, and nobody realizes the amount of work that goes into them.
I think the good thing now is I don't know how long ago, I mean, I'm only new to the scene anyway, but I don't know how long ago you were practicing the sugar craft, but there are
few years ago
now, so it just means that you don't have to create the bud. You've already got the shape of the bud in polystyrene form, and then in that way it just makes it a bit more quicker, and also the drying time is not as much waiting for the bud to dry.
And you wait then until the very end to put the bud in, to create the bud and put it in when it's complete.
No, you start with the bud. So the polystyrene bud you start with, and you insert your wire and you attach the bud onto the polystyrene bud, the wire onto the polystyrene, and that starts off your bud.
Okay.
So also it makes it a lot more lighter as well, because if you think about the amount of gum paste you have to use for each bud, it's quite weighty, so it does make it less heavy, and therefore when you're attaching it onto a real cake, it's a bit more light, and it's not going to damage the cake as much as it would do if it was all full of gum paste.
It's an amazing process. I did a course in it, a 10-week course, and then and it was addictive, because I suppose my degree was in ceramic design, so I was interested in the shape and the form of sugar craft. It's just so you would have built up a clientele now over the years, quite, and you're in London or in the UK, so you at least you have a bigger audience base, or a bigger potential client base than you would here in Ireland.
I mean, I recently, about a year and a bit ago, I moved, so I'm a little bit further away from London. But like you said, I have built up a nice clientele, and a lot of families will refer me on to their siblings or their immediate family. So I do still do a lot of my deliveries into London. So I've been lucky in that sense, you know, and I think if somebody's happy with the quality of your work and your service, they will always recommend you to, you know, friends and families. And I think that's really important to me.
How do you come up, Nasima, with the concepts, and how do you come up with the color schemes?
I think it's a bit of both. Sometimes you get clients who will contact you and they'll be very specific, you know, these are the colours of our staging, or these are the outfits we're wearing, and therefore, you know, we'd like our cake to be like this. And then you get other clients where they're like, you know, these are the colours, but we'd like some input from you. What do you think will go? And I always say to them, you know, give me some examples of things that you like, and then we can, you know, work around those kinds of ideas.
Hi, my name is Nasima Alam and I am a cake artist. Through my brand Sweet Drops of Heaven, I've been lucky enough to collaborate with large businesses and been featured in many cake magazines. My appreciation for the beauty of florals is the main reason why I enjoy creating and painting sugar flowers. I view each cake as a piece of artwork and as a chance to build an edible and delicious sculpture. In this Domestica course, you will learn how to create sugar flowers using gum paste and decorate cakes using beautiful arrangements. In the final project, you will create a bouquet of 3 different sugar flowers and assemble them onto your cake. To get started, I will show you all the materials that you will need and how to sketch out our design with a floral bouquet composition. Then we will decide on our sugar flower colours and mix the gum paste to match. Then we will analyse a classic sugar rose, an open peony and a David Austin rose. We will learn to simplify these 3 flowers and create them from bud to petal. We will bring our leaves to life and add realism to our sugar flowers. Then we will assemble our sugar leaves and sugar flowers onto a pre-covered cake. We will make some final tweaks and arrange them onto our cake. Finally, I will share some tips with you on how to show the world your work through Instagram. By the end of the course, you'll have all the techniques that you need to create beautiful sugar flowers in your own style. All you need is a range of cake decorating tools and ingredients, a cake, along with other materials you can find at home or easily online. This course is ideal for flower lovers who want to explore gum paste as a medium. Bring to life unique decorated cakes embellished with beautiful sugar flowers.
Sometimes I might, the design element of it, particularly, I might have seen something that I really want to try. So sometimes I'll sort of suggest designs, colours, or, you know, particular technique, and say to them, you know, would you like this kind of idea? And sometimes, you know, some couples are willing to, you know, try something different. And then you've got others who are very set on, you know, this is how we would like it. So it's a bit of both.
It's you know, would you consider yourself traditional in your cakes? I mean, some people now are going for very modern looking cakes that would be quirky and maybe character based, rather than floral based. Do you focus specifically on floral cake decoration? My uncle Stan, who was he was in the army in the UK. He did his national service, and he trained as a cake baker and that. And he used to do wedding cakes and birthday cakes and everything. But he did everything with royal icing.
Right.
He did my parents' wedding cake as well, and it was just stunning. Do you know? But I could never do the royal icing. I can do the sugar craft because you roll it out and you
Yeah.
and all that, but I never tried the royal icing.
Very delicate skill, isn't it?
I mean, watching him as a child just decorating cakes was just an absolute art form, and it was second nature to him. Do you know? But with you, do you specifically stick to florals? Because I know you love floral design.
I mean, I'm art trained. So at university, I did an art degree along with my English as my major subject. A bit like you, I think, Mary. So I've got that sort of background, the art background. And so I'm forever wanting to try different techniques, different materials. So yes, I love my florals and I love my hand painting and I love working with sugar flowers. But also I want to try different techniques. So as long as it looks pretty, then I'm happy to try lots of different techniques.
It just looks absolutely, they're breathtakingly beautiful and delicate. Oh. They're the colors, the tones I love. They're not in your face. They're very subtle. Is that a deliberate, or again, if someone came to you and told you that they wanted it very vibrant and very, in your face, if you like, of a cake, would that go against you as a person and what you like, or do you try to I suppose inject your taste into it in some way?
I think definitely at the beginning when I first started, I didn't have the confidence in myself to sort of say, you know what, this isn't really me, this bold, bright gold, a design that you want isn't necessarily what I would, want to create. But I think as time's gone on and I'm more confident in my work and in my skill, I'm able to say, this isn't for me, maybe you need to look for somebody else. But yes, it's definitely deliberate. I think sometimes bold colours can work. For example, I mean, Asians, we are known to love all our bright colours, but I think over the years things have changed a lot as well. Even from when I first started, the traditional red and gold outfits that a lot of brides wore, and then they wanted the same replicated in their cake. It's changed a lot, so I think people are definitely opting for much more varied designs, and majority of them are open to suggestions. But yes, it's very deliberate.
As I look at weddings, Asian weddings, and that, and particularly Muslim weddings, and they're a very big affair. Yeah. Sometimes they can last for days, and so can Irish ones as well, but in a different sense. That the music can go on for days, and the party can go on for days, but. There would be changes of outfits that could often be several different, the wedding dress and an evening wedding dress, and then another dress for the next day, another evening dress, if you like, for the next day. Do you find that they're trying to juggle, you're told all the types of dress that the bride is wearing, from the main bridal dress to the next dress to maybe the third dress, and you're trying to fit something in to all three? Or
no,
are you trying to be all things to all, if you like? Or
no, I mean,
right,
that doesn't happen. They tend to have a specific time where the cake is being cut, and usually it's after they've had like certain ceremonies have already been done, and then it's usually the last sort of segment, if you want to call it, where the cake is cut and it's distributed. So I'm not bombarded with loads of different events and lots of different outfits. It's usually, you know, at this stage, this is when we're going to cut it. This is what we're wearing. This is the staging. So yeah, no, it's not
It'd be
too
a
bad.
nightmare, wouldn't it, if you were actually handed and said, look, these are the 3 dresses I'm wearing, and this is my going away outfit, and I'd like the cake to actually match all of them.
No, less is more. I've always believed in
I
that.
always believe less is more as well. It's just, but that is the thing that I love about your cakes, is that they are the epitome of less is more. You know, yes, they are just absolutely jam-packed full of floral arrangements, but the color schemes are just so delicately transitioning into the next color and the next color. There's no shocking change of color between, say, red and yellow, or purple and yellow, or anything like that. Everything is just so muted.
Yeah,
and that's what I love.
I mean, I did I'm a Domestica Course tutor, and what I say to my students when they're designing, it's a sugar flower course, and it's a worldwide course that's access to students around the world.
I've seen it.
So what I say to them when they're doing the design process of their sugar flowers is to think about what's going to be the center point. Is it going to be your flowers? Are your flowers going to be the part that's going to, you know, want all the attention? That means then your backdrop, which is your cake, needs to be maybe a little bit more muted and not so in your face. Or it might be actually, you know, my cake design itself is really bold and lots of things going on, and actually the florals that I want on there are just going to be really delicate and one tone, or, you know, just a selection of colors rather than lots of colors. So I think that's how I probably go about designing my own cakes, is thinking about, you know, what's making the statement. Is it the flowers, or is it the actual cake and different design?
And you know, the one cake, the one flower, one cake, if you like, that I really love of yours is on Domestica, on the video. It's just plain white. It's like a big plain white daisy, for all the it's not a daisy, but I don't know what flower it is, but it's just an enormous white flower, flat, one layer.
Oh, is it an orchid? Is it orchid?
It doesn't look like an orchid, but it's just I'll be putting it into the video anyway. But it's just the cake is entirely white, and I just absolutely love that one. I think it just works so beautifully. It's just I don't think that you have any color in it at all. It just looks so simple and so pure. The flower is so pure that you couldn't, I think, to embellish it in any way on the cake would have taken from the flower, from the simplicity of the flower. And that's what I just love, that cake. But then you're starting to use textures. You use textures as well on your cake, which I love, is the almost crackled look.
Yes, there's a crackled effect that I like to use a lot. Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I was looking back at some of my university work, and funny enough, you know, I was doing texture a lot of the time at university, but obviously using different materials. So I've always liked creating texture, and it's been nice to work with a different medium with cakes.
And how do you get that crackled effect? I was looking at it and I was thinking, how does she do that now? Is it with fabric?
No, so it's just fondant, so icing fondant that's rolled out. And what you can do, if you want it to be two-toned, for example, the recent one I did, I had gold, so my fondant was rolled out and it was sort of like a dark brown color, and then over the top I painted gold luster dust over the top, and then I just left it, you know, for a couple of hours just to dry out. And then to speed it up, sometimes I use like a blowtorch.
Yeah, I saw the blowtorch. It's like a hairdryer.
Yeah, so the blowtorch sort of helps it to just, or a hairdryer, helps it to just speed up the drying process. And then
it causes it to crack.
And then you start rolling it. And as you start rolling it, it creates all those crackled effects.
Okay.
So, and because you've got the luster over the top, you get two tones. You've got the crackled effect over the gold, and then you get to see bits of the underneath fondant as well coming through.
Yeah, and if you had a piece of, if the bride had a piece of the dress, you could roll the cake out onto the fabric, and you'd get the print of the fabric.
Yes, I've done that definitely with lace. So sometimes if like the white wedding dresses have got a lot of lace on them, I've done that where I've rolled the lace out over the top of the fondant. Oh, that was quite a while ago, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's so many choices. But are they very large, and how do you transport them? I found that with me was just the part that I was petrified over. I had visions the night before I was delivering the cakes. I had absolute nightmare of nights thinking I'm going to trip as I'm bringing the cakes out. And there were cousins of mine that I did the wedding cakes for as gifts, and there were 3 tiers, and I was petrified that the flowers were going to break. Because it taken so long, and there were so many of them, and they were hanging the whole way down the cake. And I was just thinking, this is my worst nightmare. It was, how do you cope with that? Do they come and collect it themselves, or do you?
No. So, I mean, even after 6 years of cake delivering, and I do it all on my own. So I drive, I load, unload all by myself. It still doesn't get that horrible.
It's an awful feeling.
Never goes until you've delivered it and you've driven away from the venue, and that's it. That's when you feel a bit better. So it doesn't change at all. But going back to how I deliver, I used to at the beginning stack, like usually they're 3 or 4 tiers because I do mainly wedding cakes. So I usually used to stack 1 or 2 at home, with all the dowels and everything secure, and put them in my boot in crates and boxes and things like that. And then the others used to be, separate, ready to be stacked at the venue. But what happened actually once...
I'm feeling sick for you, Nasima, already.
Once, oh dear, I was on a journey to a cake delivery. I always give myself extra time whenever even if it's down the road, I always give myself extra, because always be prepared for the inevitable and what will come. So I'm on my journey, and it's a motorway journey, which is what I try to take, because you avoid all the country lanes and things which are very bumpy. So we've got massive accident that's happened, and it's saying that it's going to take me so much longer than I anticipated to get to the venue. So of course I decided I'm going to have to take some back routes to get this cake to the venue. Big mistake, because as I rolled up to the venue on time, it had slipped partially off of the first tier. So the second tier had sort of slightly, because of all the bumps. At the end of the day, it is cake, so it doesn't matter how well you stack it and dowel it. It's, there was still movement there.
And especially if it's supposed to be a dead, simple, plain cake. You don't want any blemish.
Yeah, and that one actually was a white one, and it was very plain, and it didn't have cracks on it, so I couldn't get away with it. So anyway, I turned up to this venue and very distraught, very upset, and I had an amazing wedding planner who was like, you know what, don't panic. At least it hasn't dropped on the floor. We can still serve it to the guests. But do you have like a dummy or something that, we can have just so that they can, cut into the cake? I thought, oh, what an amazing idea. So, of course, I drove all the way back home. This is like a 45-minute drive. Went to my cake studio where I had, funny enough, I'm so well planned. I do things in advance, which does work in my favor sometimes. I had already got a 3-tiered cake.
Most unlike an artist, Nasima.
3-tiered cake that was actually going to be used on another client's cake, which was already covered, already stacked and glued together because it was a dummy. And what I did is I quickly peeled off some of the decor from the existing one that had been damaged, quickly stuck it on, and drove all the way back to the venue just before the guests arrived. So, and I mean, that was after that day, I said, not even going to stack a single tier. So from now on, even if it's a 4, 5, 6 tiered cake, I take them all individually flat in my boot and I stack at the venue.
And would you do 4, 5, 6 and tier cakes?
Sorry?
Would you do 4, 5 and 6 tier cakes?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, definitely.
The most I did was 3 tier now, and Nasima, and I didn't bake the cakes. You bake the cakes as well, but from chatting to you on the phone, you don't like the process of baking as much as you like the creative side, and that's me as well.
I just because the creative side is what got me into the cakes, really. And that part if I could, I mean, eventually, if I do expand the business, I will get
someone else to make the cakes.
Yeah, I'll get somebody to be my full-time baker, so I don't need to do it. And
baking the cakes, that's I mean, here in Ireland, a lot of the cakes would be fruit cakes. So of course the cakes that we had, you don't drink alcohol. I don't drink alcohol, never did either. But the cake, the guy that baked the cakes for me, he put lots of brandy or whiskey into the cakes. So they were really moist, and there were people inside in the gents' toilets and everything saying to each other, "I'll buy you a drink if you just give me another slice of your cake. Have you and they were there, the cake was so moist and it was full of whiskey and things like that. But people are going now towards sponge cakes and everything like that, aren't they? Are they more towards sponge cakes now than the heavy fruit cake?
No, I don't think I've done a single fruit cake in the 6 years that I've been making wedding cakes.
Really?
Yeah. No one's asked for it. It's all sponge, it's all these different flavors like Oreo and Nutella and, those kinds of things. So no one's asked for fruit cake.
So you make sponge cakes, and how do I'm thinking, how does the marzipan, do you use marzipan or do you?
It's icings. I think marzipan, has it got like almond or something?
Almond. Yeah, there's an almond paste and then there's marzipan. They're two different. The almond paste is what was on our cakes rather than the marzipan. My Uncle Stan used to use the marzipan or almond, but you don't. You put the fondant straight onto sugar. You roll out the sugar paste and you put it straight on the cake.
Yeah, well, underneath, so obviously you've got your sponge and you fill your sponge with buttercream and whatever filling the client wants. And then on the exterior, I use white chocolate ganache. So that's like a thin layer on the outside, just so that when you cover it with the icing, fondant icing, it can carry the weight, because otherwise,
I was wondering.
Yeah, otherwise it can't hold the weight of the fondant. I mean, before ganache was popular, people would just use buttercream, like a thick layer of buttercream. But again, you can't get those sharp edges and it doesn't hold its shape very well. And especially in hot weather conditions, the buttercream underneath starts to ooze, starts to soften. So ganache is an option that I use all the time now.
And you always use the chocolate ganache?
Yeah, so it's white chocolate. And then sometimes clients might not want it covered in fondant. So depending on the design, because some designs require you to cover it in fondant, because with ganache, you can't stick certain things on because it's chocolate at the end of the day. It will eventually sort of fall off if it's been out for a long time. Whereas other designs, if they haven't got certain things stuck on, then you can just have ganache that's been coloured to match whatever color scheme the couple want. So sometimes it's covered in fondant only with ganache underneath, and other times it's just ganache. So
I'm sure they must they must be just in awe when they see their cakes finally finished.
Yeah,
because the cake is just as, I would argue that the cake is almost as important as the wedding dress to a bride. I think they're kind of side by side, because when you go into a room, the first thing you're going to look at is the wedding cake.
Yeah, I think
after you've seen the bride's dress.
Yeah, I think definitely the importance of cake has grown over the years, and people are spending more on cakes. I don't know if it's more important than the bride's wedding dress, though.
No, but when I say that the bride's wedding dress is absolutely the most important thing, I mean, but when you go into a hall, the first and only thing that people will all look towards is the cake. And if it's absolutely dramatic, it's the two most important things, I think, to a bride on her wedding day, visually, is how she's going to look and how her cake is going to look.
Yeah, definitely.
And some cakes can be, I mean, you talk about lots of layers and everything like that. So unless they're handled as delicately and as beautifully as yours, they can be ostentatious if they're handled very, very badly. Sometimes one layer of a beautifully decorated Nasima Alam cake, it can be more beautiful than 5, 6, 10 layers of an ostentatious cake. It's all the way it's done. I think it's important. But people want drama. They want to walk in and see, and especially Asian weddings.
Yeah.
See some of the brides, I look at some of the brides on video, and at Asian weddings, and it's almost like a spectacle. They're coming down layers of stairway in this enormous dress with their father, and then there's a 10-tier wedding cake over in the corner, and you're thinking, oh my God, how did that cake get there? Who delivered it? It was floated to the arena, to the stadium that the wedding was held in. Do you know? I think it's less is more. Yeah. Sometimes, do you know?
Yeah. And the quality. I think that I've seen, cakes that are massive and grand and huge, and make a prominent feature and a statement, but actually you go up close and you look at the work, and the workmanship maybe isn't as good quality, maybe even the internal flavors, when they've been eaten, are not as good. So I think those things are really important. For me, definitely the finer details. Even when I take pictures of my cakes, I want to be able to take really good close-up shots and not be afraid to show all the detail. And that's why, those finishing touches, the finer details, are really important to me.
What did you study at art college?
Well, actually, I did just fine art. So it sort of had a bit of everything in there. So, it was very general. It wasn't specific.
Well, what is your expectation going forward now for the business, and how did COVID affect you? Did COVID affect your business in any way?
Definitely. I mean, it all sort of happened at the same time. I went through a divorce. I moved houses, relocated to a new area that was quite far away from my friends and family. And then, of course, COVID hit as well. So it was a tough time, in the sense that obviously, business wise, that money wasn't coming in, but thank goodness, obviously, with the government incentives of furlough and things like that, which helped me and my business to just tick over during the time. So it did hit.
And you didn't really need the big factory or the big premises to function. You could do it from it was a business that you could quite successfully run from home. That's on a smaller scale.
I run it from home. I've never run the business from a premise, because for me, I was starting out as, it was started out as a hobby. It slowly grew, and for me, it just made sense, as I've got the space to do it, not to go and pay for a premise and pay rent each month if I didn't need to. I mean, looking forward, it's something I would like to do, you know, get a premise, maybe expand. But again, I quite like working from home and all the, you know, all the, you know, being your own boss, being home, not having to get up at a certain time is really nice, Mary.
Well, it is, and be able to, and as especially with COVID, you could have,
Yeah.
you could, as long as you have and especially with Zooms, as long as you have something decent on on the top, you could have your pajama bottoms on, and nobody would know, and you could walk around, and you could work in your, you know, around the house, nobody sees you.
Yeah, it is.
But,
It's not.
but there's the, you know, there's the antisocial side of it as well, because you
Oh
could
gosh.
start to feel very much into yourself if you're at home all the
Yeah.
time. You need to be getting out, but then you are meeting people as well, because you're meeting clients who are coming. You're also attending their wedding and delivering cakes.
That part of it's really nice, but I usually set up way before guests arrive, way before the bride and groom are there, so it's not that sociable in that respect, but it's nice, different venues, and meet other vendors. But yeah, definitely can feel isolated because you're working really long hours. It's not like, you know, you've got a cake that's coming up in the weekend, you can start a week in advance. You can't really, because I mean, I start my baking about 3 days before the actual event, so that the cake is fresh and, you know, it's still nice on the day when it's cut. It still tastes well, and it can do for a few more days after as well. So I try not to bake too far in advance, so it means you end up working really long hours.
Yeah, that's a thing as well. The cake, you want it to be fresh.
Yeah.
Do you know? And it's especially when with a fruit cake, you can do it weeks in advance and it'll hold. But with a sponge cake and that, and then you're juxtaposing, you're trying to come up with the right flavors that'll go with each other. Because, you know, I mean, have you experimented with flavors to try and find the right flavors that work? I mean, if someone came along and said they wanted chocolate and raspberry, and you didn't know whether chocolate and raspberry would actually work as a flavor, I'm just throwing those two colors. I hate chocolate. Personally, I hate chocolate.
I think most things you will have tried along the way, so you generally know what things work and what things don't work. But I don't think I've been asked anything like really unusual. I don't think so, no.
But Nasima, have you got any advice for people starting off in business?
I think start off small, you know, in your home, you know, make cakes for friends and family, get practice. I mean, I think the main thing is practice. You know, that's the only way you will improve those skills. You know, you can, especially for me, I can watch as many YouTube videos, but until I'm actually hands-on, you know, working on the cakes, making mistakes, learning from them, I think that's the best way, definitely. And also, we all learn differently. You know, some people can watch something, can imitate that themselves. Other people like to be more hands-on. So I think you need to know how you learn best, and if it means you need to go and get a crash course, you know, and get a course that's going to help you learn those skills, then I think, you know, people should invest definitely early on. Sometimes, in some ways, I think to myself, maybe if I did go on certain courses, I might have sort of avoided some pitfalls along the way. But I'm the sort of person, I just need to do it myself. You know, I don't want somebody telling me. I just want to get on and do it. I'm quite a hands-on, practical kind of person. So I think it all depends how you learn.
Yeah. Well, you know, as I said to you at the start of this, they're just breathtaking. Your work is just breathtaking, and I wish you, Nasima, all the best in your business. And I feel it'll just grow from strength to strength.
Thank you.
You know, you I think if you have the personality as well, and you're nice to people, and you take a pride in your work, people see that.
Definitely.
And you know, people go back. Would you have people coming back over and over again to you?
Yes, I mean, even just last week, I had a bride I did her wedding cake 5 years ago when I first started out. And she messaged me, you know, a few months back saying, you know, it's my 5th wedding anniversary and we would like for you to make us not the exact cake, but a replica of the cake, but in a smaller version, so that we can have it. And also because on their wedding day, they only cut the cake and sort of gave each other a small little piece, but later on it'd all been finished, so they didn't actually get to enjoy the cake
of their own.
So they said to the bride who messaged me, said, you know, the last 5 years, all I've been hearing is how delicious your cake was, how beautiful it looks. So we want to try it for ourselves. And they actually
sit at home and eat the full cake.
Moved and they are in South London. She sent her husband, you know, 2-hour drive up to me to come and get this cake. So definitely it's nice to have people who come back and, you know, recommend. I've got another bride who her sister had a cake done by me a few years back, then they recommended it to a friend, and now the second sister is now getting married, and now she wants me to do her wedding cake next year. So yeah, definitely nice when people are happy with your work and they recommend you. I think that's the best kind of way to run your business, on recommendations, you know, then you know that.
Oh yes, absolutely it's the only way to do it. Well, again, Nasima, thank you for being a guest on my show today, on my very first episode of The Biz. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mary. It's been lovely speaking to you. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.